Hello everyone, welcome to another Java for Android tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about classes and access modifiers. I'm using the same Hello World program that we usually use. Let's delete this line as we no longer require it. Let's talk about the non-access modifiers first. There are several types of non-access modifiers. The most important ones and the ones that we will be using in this course a lot are the static modifier and then the final modifier. First, take a look at final modifier. For example, I'm creating a variable called final int variable 1 equals 10. So if I want to change the value of 1 to, let's say, 19 again, it will not allow me to do it. That's because we have declared that variable 1 is final, which means final value of variable 1 is 10 and it cannot be changed in the due course of the program. If we want to save any constant values that is not required to be changed in the program, we can do that by using the final modifier. Now, let's take a look at an example for static modifier. I'm going to delete this as we no longer require them. Let's create a method. I'm going to create a static method and with no return type. I'm going to call this my method and there's no parameters. I'm going to say do something inside. Now the modifier static that we have used, or the keyword static that we have used in front of the method declaration, means that this declaration is independent of the other instances. For example, if there are several instances of the Hello World class created, but there will be only one instance of the static method created, or there's only one instance of the main method or the static main method that is created. So for example, if the Hello World class is using this method at any point and there is a variable inside this and the value is changed to something, if some other class uses this same method, then the value of the variable is changed. It does not remain the same as used in that class previously. For better understanding, I'm going to create another example, another class example. So let's learn how to create a new class. I'm going to right click on the package name and select new class because we are creating a new class. I'm going to call this class as my class, and notice that there won't be any check marks here because we don't want the main method. Click finish, and as you see, there's a new class created. I'm going to create a variable here called static int. I'm going to call it variable 1 and give this a value 10, and create another variable called variable 2 and then give this a value of 20. I'm going to save this, and when I need to access that class from here, what I could do is I can use the class name. My class is the class that we just created, and I'm going to use a dot, and as you could see, Eclipse gives us options of what methods or variables that we could access. So in this case, I'm going to access variable 1. I'm going to give this as 100. And now I'm going to do this as variable 2 and give this a value of 1000. So as you could see, the values of variable 1 in my class is 10 and the value of variable 2 on my class is 20. But we have changed the values here. Whenever a class or a different class, let's say there's another class called my class 2 and it is trying to access these two variables, the values of the variables will no longer be 10 and 20. It will be 100 and 1000. This is because it's a static class and it is the same instance throughout, and there won't be multiple instances of this created. Let's create a non-static class as an example now. I'm going to create a new class and call this my second class, and I'm going to click this check mark. I'm going to say I need a constructor, and there you go. There's a new class created with a constructor. As you could see, the syntax of a constructor is there's a normal class that we had created outside, and the syntax of the constructor is the public access modifier followed by the class name, and then there's the open bracket, close brackets with the flower brackets in between. We can have parameters for the constructor as well. So for example, if we want a constructor with variable, we can do that, but in this case we are not going to have any variables. So I'm going to create two variables here, variable 1 and variable 2. Inside a constructor, I'm going to assign the value of variable 1 to 10 and then variable 2 as 20. This means that we are accessing the variable 1 of this particular class. So inside a constructor, we always usually use this. So if we have a variable here, if we have a parameter, then this variable 1 refers to the variable 1 of the class and not the parameter. So this is why we use this in front of variables inside a constructor. So I'm going to delete this as we no longer require it. Now I'm going to save this class and then go back to Hello World, and I'm going to create an object. So how do I do that? I'm creating the class name followed by the name of the object. We can have anything as the name of the object, but the best practice is we name it with the class name with the first character as small. So it is my second class, but with the first character small. This is declaration. We have declared it, but we need to assign a value of this. We need to create a new instance of my second class for us to access in this particular class. So to do that, we need to say we need to create a new instance of my second class. I'm creating a new instance, and this is how you create a new instance of the my second class. And now my second class becomes an object of the my second class through which we can access the variables and methods that we want. Now I can access the variable 1 that we created, and I'm going to say that variable 1 is 100, and I'm going to create another variable 2, and I'm going to say that this is 1000. So the method here is similar to the constructor that we have used here. So if we have some kind of parameters here it is required to have a parameter. So for example, we need to have some kind of number. So since that's an int parameter that I just created, we have a parameter here. So I'm going to delete this as we no longer require it, and there's no parameter required here. What do you think of the values of these variables? So what if I create another class, and the same class is trying to access the values of these two variables of my class, and it is also trying to access the values of these two variables. Now let's try and do that. I'm going to create a new class called my third class, and I don't want a constructor here, and create a method here. I'm going to call this public void my method. So inside the method, I'm going to get the values of all the variables that we just created. The first variable is my class dot variable 1. So I'm going to create a variable called my class variable 1 equals my class dot variable 1, and similarly my class variable 2, and get the variable 2. To get the methods of this class, I need to create an object since there's a constructor here, and to do that I am creating an object. We have created an object, and through this object we can access those variables. So variable 1, so I'm going to create a variable called my second class variable 1 equals my second class dot variable 1, and similarly we can have my second class variable 2 as well. So I'm going to print the variables one after the other. So now when we call this method, all these variables will be printed. Now let's call this method here. But before we call that method, we need to declare this class as static, or else we need to create a constructor to get this method. So now we are calling the my method of the my third class that we just created. When we save and run the program, as you could see, the 100 and the 1000 are from the variable classes that we created, but the 10 and the 20 are from this variable. Even though we created an instance of the my second class here and changed it to 100 and 1000, those values did not change in this instance of the object that we created. Since the static is independent of instances, this has changed on all the instances that we try to access. I hope you have a clear understanding of what static variable means. If not, trust me, you will understand as the course progresses, and I will show you more examples on how these work. That's it for this tutorial. I will see you guys in the next tutorial. This is Alex Vijayaraj. Have a good one.